Good morning, everybody. We're going to do something today that I don't normally do with this channel, but I do think that the information is poignant and important enough that I did want to get my voice out. Before we do that, I do want to just very quickly now, away from the advertisements, the idea that I want to discuss today is really the idea that teams don't need to push the needle and it's okay, right? So with the title of the video, we're talking about Bad Batch Mercenary Squad, but I'm also actually kind of pushing this back into the Ahsoka Galactic Legends Squad as well. I totally understand people being disappointed with certain aspects of her kit. And her not being as strong as they feel she should be, especially the people who have wailed on her. I'm not talking about those people here, but what I am talking about is the idea that every team that comes out needs to have something major attached to it, or has to be something important enough to get everybody out of bed. Now, normally, I do discuss things from a more neutral perspective of, hey, this is what's good for CG, and hey, this is what's good for the players, and we have to meet in the middle. Because we're talking primarily from a player perspective today, and we're not talking about what makes sense for CG as a company, we're going to focus primarily on why this is good for us as players. As you can see, I go into my collection. I'm a 12.7 million account. I've been doing this a very, very long time. I still don't have Ahsoka finished, right? 43 of 100 on Sabine, 82 of 100 on Huyang, who I'm not even refreshing anymore. Sabine, I'm refreshing once a day, which is what I do with every single character that comes out. And then you would think that I would be done with General Syndulla already because she is on a 10 energy Cantina node. But when I started to realize that, hey, Ahsoka's not actually going to really do much for my account, why am I going to gimp myself and spend all of that energy on on her shards each day instead of getting signal data? Now, of course, one can argue, Egnards, it takes about 2 weeks to get her up, and then you're back on track. And that's completely fine. But when these guys came out, I was hurting for signal data, right? I'm doing pretty okay right now. Oh, those are for shards. I'm doing pretty okay right now, but realistically, if I had sped these guys up, I wasn't going to be able to get them to the relics, and it didn't make sense. So what I'm actually doing with Hera Syndulla, General Syndulla, is just doing my normal signal data each day. And then at my midday 2 p.m. refresh, I do whatever energy is accumulated at that point towards her, which is effectively 9 battles on most days, right? And she will probably end up finishing up maybe in at this point, what do we got? We can do the math here. We need 71 shards. Times 3 divided by 9. She'll be done in about 23 days. Maybe I'll speed her up towards the end, but honestly, I probably doubt it. Because the economy event for Ahsoka is actually attached to her first set of requirements, and because there is no economy event for Ahsoka herself, there's no reason for me, right? She's a perfectly strong team. She does fine in GAC, she does fine in ROTE, but I already have ROTE teams set up, and being in Kyber 2, I do see her sometimes. She's very beatable with SLKR. It's not something I'm worried about. Now, going into Bad Batch, I started, and I did make the same mistake that a lot of people made when it came to Omega Fugitive, right? I did do the 3 packs of her to get her a little bit, actually I did a 5 pack of her to get her a little bit higher up, expecting a major farm. I did the same thing with Betcha, even though at that point we did know there was nothing else big to worry about. More on that in a second, right? And after Betcha, I kind of started to think about it and realized, well, hold on. Wait a second. You know, we have confirmation from Meathead on Discord. This team did have either an event or a legendary unit attached. We're not sure which one. And it was scrapped. So the 5-man team, Omega, Betcha, Hunter, Wrecker, and then Crosshair are going to be it. And they're a perfectly fine team. They're perfectly strong. I'm sure the people who are wailing on her and spending lots of resources on them are totally okay with having a team that's going to be very strong. But I see it from a different perspective. Basically, I'm seeing this as a time where I can actually spend my resources on side projects. Okay, as a 12.7 million account, those side projects means just bringing characters to G12, or even, you know, bringing characters that I did want to bring to R8 for things like Rise of the Empire, or let's see, where are they? Or for GAC, to R7 from R5. This is my time to do that. This is my time to play catch up. Now, there are a lot of you that are not at the 12 million point, who are at the 9 million, the 8 million, the 7 million. And this is me giving you that permission to say, hey, you don't have to go for this team heavily right away. You can work on those GL that are in the background. You can work on that fun team that you've always wanted to work on and felt like you couldn't work on. You have time here. Now, I do know that there is that secondary person who's going to say, well, Egnards, we never know. You know, like, maybe there's going to be something in the future. Here's the deal. If we were to go back and look at the old Bad Batch team, right? So the team that came out in 2021, Hunter came out in April, Tech came out in April, Wrecker came out in April, Echo came out in May, Omega actually came out 2 months later, right? And those characters were not initially attached to anything. We did eventually get them attached to Lord Vader, who released in September, right? Now, if we look at that and we see, hey, Omega was the only one who is not farmable at that point, it kind of puts me in a position where I think that if we if we do see something eventually come to this team, most players who are in my position or who are in lower positions are going to have the time to pivot without too much issue, right? Now, that is not to say if another GL is attached to these characters, or another epic confrontation is attached to these characters later down the road, that people in that lower position are going to be able to get that character on day one. But realistically, those same players, and myself included, we're not getting that character on day one anyway, right? Anytime something new comes to this game, we as players go, oh, we got to get that. And sometimes it works out for us, and other times we go, hey, wait a second, why did I spend all of those resources? So for right now, what I've been doing as someone who, you know, it does have a pretty significant crystal income on a daily basis, I have been spending those on these daily deals. And I know that that seems crazy, and I'm not telling everyone to do it, but I know that my biggest hurdle is signal data right now. So on top of having my 3 characters right here who I am working on just for ease of working on them, I have favorited a bunch of my relic characters. They're random. There's no rhyme or reason to this row of characters. And every 3 to 4 days, this daily deal becomes the one that gives me 110 flawed signal data on top of a small amount of other goodies, right? Last time, it was actually 12 total shards of these characters and some green signal data. And I think it was bronzium wiring, but I'm not 100% sure, right? And I know you're thinking, Egnards, that's like a terrible deal, right? 3,200 crystals, 110 blue signal data. That's 29 crystals per signal data, when normally in the shops that costs 30. Seems like, oh, you're getting like the tiniest discount. But the reality is, I was also getting these shards to speed up this farm that, again, not really necessarily concerned about. but also getting small amounts of green signal data and some relic data. I'd say that brings that total discount from 29 out of 30 to somewhere probably around 24, 25 out of 30. If you only have 3,000 crystals, maybe not the biggest or best deal in the world, but when you're pushing 40,000 crystals every week, I am going to tell you, yes, I am going to make that deal every time. My goal right now as a guild, we're pushing 43 stars, and I would really love to have a full Night Sister team for those R8 planets. I would really love to have a full Imperial Remnant team with Enoch to be able to do some of those R8 planets. I would really love to be able to assist my guild a little bit more on those things, as well as just some teams that I've wanted to do for a really long time and just haven't had the ability to. Actually, 2 years ago, I was working on bringing these guys to R8 for ROTE, just for the silliness of it, because Captain Rex was really strong. And because of the increased release cadence, I kind of put a pause on that. So basically what I am saying here is I am giving you permission not to ignore this farm. Oh, not that farm. Not to ignore this farm. I'm not saying, hey, don't do anything with these shards. But what I am saying is that as a veteran player towards the end game, I will be doing one refresh a day on each of them as they become farmable, and completely ignoring shard farming them from the marquee itself from here on out. Now, with Omega, 100% one a day, just because I do that with every farm. It could be literally Cup, and I would do that. Batcha, one a day. Hunter, one a day. Depending on if there is any news between Wrecker and Crosshair, I'm thinking still one a day, but maybe two a day, depending. Remember, right now, we don't even have a raid announced. We already have the next era announced, and the Conquest unit is started, and a new Legendary unit is announced for those Jedi Vanguard. This is going to be that forgotten team, and that team, maybe, +1 era from now, is going to get something, maybe. But you'll have the time to do that without too much issue. So right now, yes, bring something like Mission Vio up to Relics and get the Zalbar Omicron that I want so bad, but I'm running out of Omicrons, right? Use your materials wisely, but don't be afraid to put them on something that in the past you'd be worried about putting gear on because you're currently hoarding for this, that, or the other thing. What you want to do is always think about, will this team, as the title of the video says, push the needle? Will this team fundamentally alter my account? Will this team take me and my account to the next level? And the answer to that, at least in my case, but I do think in most of your cases, is going to be no. And I want you to be okay with that, right? I see it on Reddit, I see it on Discord, like, oh, I'm not excited, this sucks. I'm giving you permission to be okay. We talk about the increased cadence, how it's a struggle, how it's tough for us, how we're like, oh, there's so much coming out. It's okay to not be excited about something, especially when there's nothing greater coming from it, right? That's your time to hoard your Zetas or use it on your backlog. Okay, I know, people are going to get mad at me. I know I have a lot of Zetas in the background. I've just been playing for a very, very long time. Those will be gone once Ahsoka comes out. But I know that with Lightspeed bundle purchasers, you guys have been struggling greatly in the more recent future. And this is your time to play catch up a little bit, right? And again, if this is a team that if you're towards the end game, you're like, oh, but I have to have them, consider doing them in the background, right? consider doing them in the background. Consider not spending as many crystals on them, because will it fundamentally alter, change, or improve your count? And I think that in about 80 to 90% of cases, the answer is going to be no. And I will leave you with, that's okay. With that said, have a great rest of your day, and peace out.